I used to think that starting a romantic relationship was like being a meticulous artisan, holding a raw stone in our hands while dreaming of crafting it into a perfect masterpiece. Those early moments were so beautiful, filled with pure emotions, untouched by any calculation. We were like children discovering love for the first time, simply wanting to share and nurture a dream larger than ourselves. I remember those first encounters, the other person's eyes brimming with trust, while I carried an entire sky of idealistic hopes for happiness. Back then, everything was simple yet full of life. I thought I would always be the protector, the anchor, the guiding light for the one I loved. Love made me want to be better, to grow, as if only by being worthy could I truly deserve to love them. But who could have predicted that time, an unrelenting test, would gradually wear down what seemed unchangeable? In those early days, we didn't think much about a distant future. We only knew how to live fully in the present. Yet, as life crept in, work pressures, responsibilities, and the mundane ambitions of daily life, love was no longer an absolute sanctuary. Those initial dreams were slowly replaced by cold realities. I realized I was no longer as pure or carefree as I once was. This left me wondering at times, how far have I strayed from the person I once hoped to become? There are moments, caught in the whirlwind of life, when I suddenly realize I've lost some of the sincerity I once had. Perhaps it's because I've been chasing grand ambitions, forgetting the small yet precious values from the beginning. It's ironic. Rather than preserving and cherishing the very things that built our love, I've turned them into lessons, into comparisons, into judgments about the relationship I'm in now. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly when I realized I had become the calculating man I once swore I'd never be. Love, if left unattended, starts to resemble an old, lifeless road. I've come to understand that when the curiosity and novelty in a relationship fade, what remains are the true challenges of responsibility and patience. Yet thankfully, if both people hold steadfast, the relationship matures, growing deeper. It's no longer about empty sweet words, but about shared understanding and hands ready to lift the other when they need it most. In that phase, I began to realize that true love isn't just about making the other person happy. It's about companionship, support, and helping them achieve greater things in life. Love changed me, not just outwardly, but deeply within. I learned to approach everything with empathy and compassion, no longer putting my ego first. That feeling is both liberating and profound. I've come to understand that sometimes real love isn't about demanding anything from the other person, it's about the way I give, expecting nothing in return. Love, at a certain stage, becomes a mirror reflecting the hidden corners of our soul. I've seen within myself negative energies I had never noticed before, vague anxieties, a sense of insecurity, and even moments of unconscious stubbornness. These small things, despite seeming insignificant, can have a profound impact on a relationship, not only hurting me, but also exhausting the person I love. I've come to understand that if I want a relationship built on a strong foundation, I must first learn to confront and change myself. But genuine love isn't something easily attained. We don't start by loving with depth. At first, it might just be attraction, a glance or a smile that stirs our heart. For that love to truly grow, it takes time and trials. I used to think a little effort was enough, but it's not. Change needs to happen continuously, day by day, hour by hour, as I strive to become a better version of myself for the one I love. This process can take years, filled with moments of uncertainty, but it's these very struggles that give love its true meaning. That said, I also understand that true love doesn't mean clinging to a relationship filled with pain. Some people, though together, exchange only cold words, wounding each other with careless actions. I once threw myself into work, believing that earning more money would bring happiness to the one I loved. But there came a moment when I realized that as I lost myself, becoming stressed, indifferent, and distant, all the material things I brought home could never fill the emptiness growing in the heart of the person beside me. Many people, including my past self, often believe they are working hard for their family by spending entire days at work, when in reality, they're fulfilling personal ambitions. I used to come home exhausted and irritable, forgetting that the people waiting for me didn't need my success. They simply needed a father, a husband, a son who knew how to love and listen. I've come to realize that building a career and seeking talent are pursuits anyone can follow. But transforming one's character and holding on to core values is a far greater challenge. It's so easy to avoid self-improvement, using the excuse that we're working on something bigger. But the truth is, if we don't invest time in creating and preserving family happiness, all those efforts out there are nothing more than an empty facade. In the end, I learned that family isn't just a place to return to for rest. It's the ultimate test of love and responsibility. Instead of leaving the work of raising children or maintaining harmony entirely to my partner, I needed to learn how to share, to shoulder the burden together. Because that connection, more than earning money, is what truly creates the foundation for a lasting relationship. My childhood felt like a gentle dream, where family was the safest embrace, the place where I understood the true meaning of peace. Simple yet warm meals, laughter from endless, nonsensical stories, and the comfort of knowing that no matter what happened outside, as long as I came home, everything would be okay. But strangely, as I grew up, I gradually forgot that feeling. When work pressures and personal ambitions grew larger, I began to see family as merely a place to rest and indulge. Coming home, I no longer had the mind to think about doing something for my loved ones. I just wanted them to do something for me. And when those needs weren't met as I expected, I felt disappointed. That disappointment didn't stay with me. It spread into criticism, cold stares, and sometimes long, lingering silences. I used to think that family was a launch pad for building my career, but over time, I turned it into a means to serve my personal goals. It wasn't until a major life event, a significant failure, or a health issue that I stopped in my tracks. That was when I realized I had unknowingly placed an enormous burden on the shoulders of the people I loved most. I wasn't just expecting their support, I was also offloading my negative energy from stress onto them through both my words and actions. But do we really need to wait for a crisis to change? I believe we don't. Instead of letting mistakes pile up, we can start re-examining ourselves today. I tried starting with small things, reading books to broaden my perspective, spending quiet moments to take care of myself, and learning to let go of unnecessary pressures. Gradually, I realized that when I became gentler with myself, the wounds I had unintentionally inflicted on my spouse, partner, or children began to heal as well. The bonds within a family don't form naturally. They need to be nurtured every day with simple yet heartfelt actions. I've learned to be more patient, more compassionate, and to maintain positivity in both my words and actions. I understand now that if I become negative, distant, or lose my natural warmth, my relationships with loved ones will inevitably crack. Small gestures, a smile, a caring look, or a kind word can keep the family's fire burning warmly. I used to think that fulfilling my material responsibilities was enough, but then I realized that providing money could never replace nurturing the soul. What truly connects a family isn't extravagant gifts, but genuine presence, attentive listening, and unconditional love. When I started to change myself, my family gradually returned to its best version. In moments of self-reflection, I asked myself, if one day I lose my talents, my status, or my wealth, what will remain of me? The answer was simple yet profoundly challenging. Only my true self. And I realized that this is the most important thing to preserve a family. Not the superficial things, but the core values and sincerity within my heart. I've learned that to truly change negative habits like stress, anger, or unconscious control, it takes more than a fleeting moment of willpower. It requires a continuous, persistent program of change. Cultivating and caring for the mind becomes a cornerstone not only for self-improvement, but also as the foundation of any loving relationship. Because love isn't just an emotion, it's a long journey of patience and growth. I've been through phases where my mind was clouded with frustration, negative thoughts, and the feeling that everything around me was falling short of my expectations. But when I paused, allowed myself to relax, and returned to a state of inner peace, something magical happened. Even though the worries remained, I noticed a shift. My family began responding to me in a gentler, more pleasant way. It turns out that when I changed, they unconsciously changed too. A smile, a kind word, or simply being present without pressure. All of it had an unexpected ripple effect. Both science and life show us that we are interconnected beings, constantly interacting with our environment. When I change, the energy I emit influences those closest to me. This change can be fast or slow, but it's always there. I remember one time after a long and tiring day, instead of bringing a frown home, I tried to smile. Surprisingly, the atmosphere in the house felt lighter, and our conversations became warmer. A small act, but it made a big difference. I've realized that instead of trying to change others, a pursuit that often leads to disappointment, the best approach is to focus on myself. When I am calm and at ease, the guardedness of those around me gradually softens. They may not change immediately, but I know the positive energy I bring is quietly making a difference. Simple actions like maintaining a calm attitude, letting go of excessive expectations, or approaching conversations with a gentle spirit are enough to shift the atmosphere. I no longer fixate on receiving a response, but instead enjoy the satisfaction of doing what feels right. Interestingly, when I let go of expectations, the love and kindness I receive often exceed what I imagined. Changing oneself isn't easy, but it's the most effective path to creating a positive, loving environment. And when I take this path, it's not just me who finds peace. Those I care about also feel the warmth radiating from deep within. I often think that every small action I take, every effort to change, no matter how tiny, is not just a gift to myself, but also a way to nurture the most important relationships in my life. Like watching a flower bloom, the peace I feel doesn't end with that moment. It quietly seeps into conversations, glances, and even the atmosphere at home. Perhaps that's the invisible connection we rarely recognize. When I take time for gentle things, reading a book, enjoying a quiet morning, or engaging in something meaningful, that sense of calm doesn't just stay within me, it reaches the people I love. I don't need to say anything or even have them present. The shift in how I perceive and live each day creates positive ripples on its own. I've come to understand that our loved ones don't need extravagant gifts or grand promises. Sometimes what they need most is simply sincere presence. Shared family meals, unforced smiles, or simple conversations filled with genuine listening. Just that is enough for them to feel that I'm improving, that my soul is lighter, and that is the greatest gift I can give. During tough times, I've learned the true value of love and presence. Things like pride and ego, which I once clung to, suddenly feel meaningless. When someone in the family faces challenges, what they need isn't hollow advice, but empathy, the willingness to sit beside them without judgment. And in those moments, I've realized that love isn't about conditions or demands, it's about giving freely and selflessly. But there have been times when I've looked back and realized that, unintentionally, I had placed invisible pressures on my loved ones. It could be through overly high expectations, words spoken without careful thought, or even a negative attitude on days when I couldn't manage my emotions. And I came to see that they endured more than I ever imagined. Stories of pressure from parental expectations are all too familiar. I remember my mother once hoped that we would achieve the things she couldn't, like excelling in school or getting into prestigious universities. While she always said it was for our own good, I knew those expectations weren't easy to bear. There were times I wanted to tell her, what I need isn't perfection, but trust. I've come to understand that loving the right way sometimes means learning to let go. Letting go of unnecessary expectations, letting go of the standards we impose on others, and letting go of the invisible pressures we unintentionally create. Only then can I foster an environment where love is nurtured through lightness, not burdens. And each day, I remind myself that no matter how much I want to achieve out there, the most important thing will always be how I show up for the people I love. I used to think that loving my family meant trying to give them the best things I never had. But then I realized that sometimes that desire becomes a pressure. It's like an invisible cage where the people I love get caught up in the whirlwind of expectations, things that even I in the past couldn't achieve. Being a father, a mother, a husband, a wife, it's hard to know what's truly right, because no one teaches us how to love without becoming a burden to others. When I realized that my demands, though seemingly reasonable, didn't align with the circumstances or abilities of my loved ones, my heart grew heavy. They had tried so hard, they were exhausted. But I kept expecting more, kept asking for more, And I saw that not only was this unfair, but it was also truly heartbreaking for them. This feeling made me see things through a different lens. I started asking myself, how do my loved ones feel? Are they tired? Are they enduring something from me? And for the first time, I felt deep compassion for them. Compassion for the silent sacrifices they'd never spoken of. Compassion because they lived beside me without ever experiencing a full day of peace. I understand that, even though my love may come from a good place, if it turns into constant demands, it's no longer true love. Every person, including my loved ones, has the right to be the master of their own life. I have no right to manipulate or impose upon them, even with the intention of making them better. Instead of continuing to demand, I've learned to let go of expectations, even those I believe are reasonable. Because I've come to realize that what I think is good isn't always what's right for others. I've started seeking change within myself, rather than waiting for others to change. I remind myself that love isn't about coercion. It's about creating space for each person to find their own joy and peace in their own way. Sometimes I want to sit down and ask simple yet meaningful questions. Am I making you tired? Am I asking too much? Do you feel uncomfortable because of me? These seemingly small questions are a way for me to face the truth, to realize that perhaps while I think I'm doing what's best, I may be unintentionally hurting those I love most. With my children, I've come to realize even more clearly that the best thing I can do is not to decide for them, but to respect their freedom. Every child needs space to breathe, to grow without being imposed upon. As a parent, my love should not be a rein holding them back, but hands ready to lift them when they need it. And I've learned to accept that true love isn't about making everything align with my will, but about accompanying them, listening, and letting them live fully as themselves. I once thought that life had to follow a mold, a formula to achieve happiness. But then I realized that the pressure from these molds didn't just weigh on me, it also unintentionally burdened my loved ones. Sometimes the best thing I can do isn't to demand or guide them to follow what I think is right, but to learn to let go, so they can develop freely in their own way. Letting go doesn't mean indifference or giving up. It means creating a comfortable space for them to be themselves, without being bound by my expectations. I've realized that when I ease up on control and give freedom, everything feels lighter. They no longer feel suffocated, and the bond between us becomes stronger. Sometimes, freedom is the most precious gift I can offer them. But I also understand that every relationship is an interaction, and the energy I bring has a direct impact on those around me. If I carry stress, fatigue, or say things that aren't right, it will certainly affect my loved ones. Therefore, instead of trying to change them, I've learned to change myself. I start with the small things: developing skills, practicing positive methods like meditation, reading, or simply attending classes that help me understand how to build better relationships. This change is not something that happens overnight. It requires a lot of perseverance because changing oneself is a long and challenging journey. But with every small step I take, I notice the difference. My loved ones seem to sense it. They start to open up more, feel more at ease. They may not express it, but I can feel their support and companionship through the small changes in how we communicate, in the simple moments of daily life. And I understand that, even though the journey is still long, these efforts not only benefit me, but also my family. When one person changes in a positive direction, the whole relationship shifts. I don't need everything to be perfect right away. I just want to see each day that I'm living more authentically, more gently. And eventually, my family, my loved ones will feel that difference too, as we build a relationship filled with understanding and love together.